Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, June 7th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A key Supreme Court ruling, a vice president's firm message on immigration, and a new policy proposal here in our county. Tonight, major moves are being made on the immigration front. Our coverage begins with KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel.
Connecting available resources and identifying where there are gaps can save and impact lives.
Nathan Fletcher and Nora Vargas are proposing to create a San Diego County Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. The office would be a hub where immigrants could receive available resources, including legal services. Ismahan Abdullahi, Executive Director of Mass PACE and a Somali refugee herself, says this office is long overdue. It's a necessity she wishes her family had when they resettled in the U.S.
When my family faced food insecurity decades ago as newly resettled refugees, if we had an office like this, if we knew where to go, that one-stop shop that can give us access that were to services that were available, and being able to communicate some of those needs, it would have had an impact in our lives early on.
Vice Chair Vargas, a daughter of immigrants from Mexico, shares the same sentiment and hopes this office can create opportunities for the thousands of immigrants living in the county.
20% of our population was born in a different country. 68 languages are spoken in this region.
Board Chair Fletcher acknowledged the many contributions immigrant families bring to the community.
We know our immigrant communities work exceptionally hard. We know they pay taxes into programs they can often not access. Oftentimes, our immigrant communities remain disconnected from available resources due to many misguided policies.
As the county makes moves to move forward with their framework to make San Diego a welcoming place for immigrants and refugees, immigrants with temporary protected status in the U.S. received a setback Monday morning. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that people under TPS who entered the country unlawfully are ineligible to apply to become permanent residents. The U.S. currently provides TPS to over 400,000 people. Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
Immigration is top of mind for Kamala Harris during her first foreign trip as vice president. Today, she held meetings in Guatemala, tomorrow in Mexico City. She had a message for anyone in the region thinking about making the dangerous journey to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur.
And as Mandy Gaither reports, there's a lot at stake to stem the flow of migrants into the U.S.
After a bumpy start with a technical issue that forced the vice president's plane to return back to where it started. Are you okay? Kamala Harris landed in Guatemala's capital in her first foreign trip as vice president, hoping to further solidify the administration's strategy towards migration.
She doesn't hold back, which is good. She's frank.
In an interview ahead of their meeting, Guatemala's president blamed the heightened border crossings in part on the Biden administration's vow to reunite families.
The very next day, the Coyotes were here organizing groups of children to take them to the United States. We asked the United States government to send more of a clear message to prevent more people from leaving.
It's a high-stakes trip for Harris against the backdrop of a growing number of migrants arriving at the U.S.-Mexico border. In April alone, U.S. Customs and Border Protection encountered more than 178,000 migrants. Senior staff members say Harris will try to deepen the U.S.'s relationship with Guatemala and Mexico. She's expected to focus on border security, corruption, and advancing economic opportunity. I'm Mandy Gaither reporting.
It's a critical month on Capitol Hill for President Joe Biden's agenda, including overhauling infrastructure, voting rights, and policing. Isabel Rosales has a look at the major obstacles the president faces, including one key player in his own party.
As Congress works into the summer, Democrats and Republicans remain at odds.
We had a COVID bill passed that wasn't really about COVID, and now we've seen an infrastructure bill tossed about that really hasn't been about infrastructure.
Pressure is building from the left to pull the plug on negotiations. After rejecting the GOP's latest counteroffer on the infrastructure bill, President Joe Biden is expected to meet again with them Monday.
This is just numbers. It's helping the country, and we ought to be able to find a resolution on that. If we can't, that spells trouble.
But moving forward without Republican support could take time and have political fallout. Moderate Democratic Senator Joe Manchin holds critical political power in a split Senate.
I've voted in a bipartisan way in the last 10 years of the Senate, so I'm doing what I have always done.
Some Democrats accuse him of standing in the way of Biden's legislative priorities.
Joe Manchin has become the new Mitch McConnell.
Following the rise of new restrictive voting laws at the state level, Democrats do not have the votes in the Senate to pass federal voter protections. Manchin is the only Senate Democrat who did not co-sponsor the For the People Act.
I think there's a lot of great things I agree in that piece of legislation, but there's an awful lot of things that basically don't pertain directly to voting.
And key negotiators are looking to finalize a deal on police reform. Republican Senator Tim Scott telling reporters it's June or bust. In Washington, Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
$650 million. That's how much federal fund money county supervisors will be dividing up tomorrow. Half the aid will be available this year, the rest by next spring. A draft proposal calls for $307.5 million to pay for pandemic costs, $85 million for homeless services, $50 million for small businesses, infrastructure $46 million, and $40 million is slated for premium pay for county workers. Just some of the plans for the money. We will see what supervisors finally decide at tomorrow's meeting. A federal judge in San Diego has overturned California's 3-decade-old ban on assault weapons. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says gun rights advocates celebrated the decision, while others fear the ruling may lead to more violence.
In the 94-page ruling, U.S. District Court Judge Roger Benitez said sections of the state ban of military-style rifles in place since 1989 violate the Second Amendment. He also compared the AR-15 assault rifle to a Swiss Army knife. Benitez issued a 30-day stay of his order to give State Attorney General Rob Bonta the opportunity for an appeal. That keeps the ban in effect. In a tweet on Friday, Bonta called the ruling fundamentally flawed and said there was no sound basis, in fact, to equate assault rifles with Swiss Army knives. John Dillon is the attorney for the gun owner rights groups which filed the suit. They argued their Second Amendment rights were restricted because the state's definition of an assault weapon was broadened over time.
It's ever-expanding, ever-changing law that we were challenging. And basically, the difference is the attachments that go to the gun. These differences don't do anything to the actual function or the ballistics of a firearm.
The ruling comes at a time when the nation continues to grapple with gun violence, with the rise in mass shootings and a push from some lawmakers to ban assault weapons. Carol Landale is a San Diego County resident and member of multiple gun control organizations, including San Diegans for Gun Violence Prevention. She says these organizations don't want to take firearms away from responsible gun owners, but the recent ruling on assault weapons poses a serious risk for further gun violence.
Already we see that states with less restrictive gun laws have a much higher death rate from guns, and that's both homicide and suicide. So we know that these laws do work. They're not the only solution, but they are part of the solution.
Judge Benitez previously ruled that the state's ban on high-capacity magazines was unconstitutional and also overturned the restriction on remote purchases of gun ammunition. The state is appealing both of those decisions. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
A man who pleaded guilty to taking part in a charity fraud scheme led by former Chabad of Poway Rabbi Israel Goldstein was sentenced today. Bruce Baker received 15 months in custody. The La Jolla resident admitted to donating at least $2.6 million to the synagogue over more than 2 decades, with nearly all of that money funneled right back to him by Goldstein. The former rabbi also pleaded guilty to charges in the so-called 90-10 tax deduction conspiracy. Prayers, hugs, and tears at an Escondido park as hundreds turned out to remember 2 San Diego police detectives killed in a wrong-way crash. Yesterday's vigil was held blocks away from where the married couple lived. Ryan Park and Jamie Huntley Park met at the police academy and were promoted to detective together in 2018. San Diego Police Chief David Nisleit said their loss is a tragedy, but their legacy lives on.
Seeing how this hurts, and it hurts, and there's no way other than to say it just hurts and it sucks and it shouldn't have happened. But I know both Jamie and Ryan would want us to be strong. They'd want us to carry on and continue to do our job and continue to serve the public like we know how.
The name of the driver who slammed head-on into the couple's car has not yet been released. She also died in Friday's crash in San Ysidro. A new study of greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution finds reducing both could save millions of lives. Here's KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson.
The push to cut back greenhouse gas emissions may end up having an added benefit if climate-friendly strategies also lead to a reduction in air pollution. Pascal Polonic is a PhD student at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. His paper found that cutting coal or diesel emissions to meet Paris Climate Accord greenhouse gas emission targets have the added benefit of eliminating a health threat for millions of people.
As humans emit greenhouse gases, they're also emitting other stuff like particulate matter, which has negative consequences for human health.
Polonic says black carbon particulates are bad for human health and accelerate the planet's warming. He says reducing industrial pollution could reduce global warming and improve human health. The findings are published in the current edition of the journal Earth's Future. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
2 water agencies that serve the Fallbrook and Rainbow areas want to separate from the San Diego County Water Authority. They say they could get better rates elsewhere. KPBS's Alexander Nguyen explains.
Growing avocados is serious business in the North County, and avocado trees needs water, lots of it. Frank Wallum is a second-generation farmer who runs Wallum Growth Management, operating hundreds of acres of avocados for a variety of owners. He says water costs are making it harder to stay in business.
Any reduction in water rate helps us significantly. I think our largest input costs.
Municipal Water District and Fallbrook Public Utility District, we are working together to serve our communities. Have you noticed the cost of water going up?
Helping farmers stay in business is why Rainbow Municipal Water District and Fallbrook Public Utility District filed the application to separate from the San Diego County Water Authority. They want to move to a Riverside agency, which they say could save millions of dollars a year.
SDCWA gives us the right to detach.
Tom Kennedy is the general manager of Rainbow Water Agency. He says rates have been going up for years without real benefits to its customers.
We said, well, why don't we just change wholesalers?
The Water Authority defended its rate increases, saying they were necessary to ensure water reliability. Kelly Gage is the San Diego County Water Authority Water Resources Director.
So while San Diego County ratepayers have been paying somewhat higher rates, it's because we can count on that water supply, especially in these dry years. And those investments, of course, cost money.
A panel of local officials are weighing the issues, and a decision isn't expected until the fall. Voters will then have a chance to make the final decision. In the North County, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
The IRS is sending refunds to some 13 million people for taxes paid on 2020 unemployment benefits. Upwards of 2.8 million refunds are going out just this week. The American Rescue Plan Act excludes up to $10,200 in unemployment compensation per taxpayer paid last year. Taxes paid on the benefits now count as overpayments. Most affected taxpayers won't have to file an amended return. As California faces another dangerous fire season, federal fire crews are struggling to keep stations staffed. In part, that's because of low wages that some are calling unreasonable. Kay Racine has more.
These are pictures of Captain Lonnie Brown and her colleagues as they battle 2016's Ray Fire, just one of many devastating wildfires she has fought in her beloved career as a Forest Service captain.
I want to start by saying I really love my job. I really enjoy the outdoors. I love the camaraderie within my crew, the Forest Service, and the wildland firefighting community.
However, as wildfires such as last year's LNU complex have ravaged California, a fire which she helped fight, she says federal firefighters are overworked and underpaid.
Asking these people to do this hard, dangerous work where sometimes they're putting their lives on the line, that it's just not reasonable.
Brown says pay for Forest Service firefighters starts at $13.45 an hour. California's minimum wage is $15 an hour.
What that equates to is our firefighters can't afford a one-bedroom apartment in the areas that they live in.
Captain Brown says some crews are understaffed by as much as 30%.
It's been really frustrating to watch these quality people that come in and, really want to do this job, basically have to make a choice.
Even as the fires have gotten worse, the number of federal firefighters has actually dropped.
Congressman Josh Harder has been working to create incentives to pay crews a living wage and to hire more staff and to retain them.
This is because we have a stake in it. We need to make sure that these fire crews are staffed because this fire season is going to be devastating.
Brown says she has not only been fighting fires for much of her career, she has been fighting for better pay. And she's grateful this issue is gaining some traction.
For some eyes to be on the problem because this is not a new problem.
Brown said it would also help to reclassify federal firefighters. She says they are classified as forestry technicians, not firefighters, which can affect the pay grade.
As we take a look at our weather headlines, we have another trough moving across the western states, so that means our marine layer will continue to deepen, maybe some spotty drizzle for some. Winds are on the increase through tomorrow, but by the middle part of the week, we'll start to see some gradual warming. We do have some wind advisories in effect, and this continues through Tuesday morning. Strong westerly winds here whistling through the mountains. For tonight here in the metro, we'll be looking at low clouds and temperatures in the lower 60s. Temperatures tonight dipping down to the 50s. Borrego Springs to Mount Laguna. Ramona's at 52 and Oceanside around 58. Plenty of clouds hugging the coastal areas. And looking at our future radar here, you see a few little blips of green, kind of hints that there may be some localized areas of some drizzle overnight and in the early morning hours. There's that trough Tuesday. The heat as well into the interior. Our temperatures will be near average or maybe slightly below. But you can see it does heat up to 95 Borrego Springs, 78 in El Cajon, and Oceanside right around 70 degrees. We do have a front swinging down towards our area that'll fall apart. That keeps the heat in the interior. Comfortable conditions near the coast. And we'll also see some winds in the interior too as that system moves through. So checking on our weather here, next couple of days, deep marine layer, clouds and then some sun. But then the marine layer not as potent, so it looks like we should have some nicer weather for the end of the week. Inland areas, some clouds and sun, and then the warm up coming later in the week. Headed up into the mountains, refreshing here, but a lot of sunshine into the weekend. And in the deserts, temperatures will get back to triple digits Friday and Saturday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
The U.S. Supreme Court will not take up a case challenging the male-only military draft. The justices declined to hear a constitutional challenge filed by the National Coalition for Men. The group wanted the court to reconsider a 1981 decision upholding the Military Selective Service Act. The law requires all men to register for the draft but leaves women out. The case argued it was unlawful sex discrimination. For the first time ever, city leaders raised the LGBTQ flag at San Diego's City Hall. The event also helped commemorate Pride Month. Mayor Todd Gloria was joined by civic and LGBTQ leaders to raise the rainbow flag and to promote a more inclusive San Diego. San Diego also carries the distinction of being the largest city in the country to ever elect an openly gay man as mayor.
47 years ago, the San Diego Police Department would raid our gay nightclubs, harassed us, and yes, beat us. Now we have LGBT police officers in our police chief marches and our parades.
Just last week, San Diego Unified also raised 2 flags at a local school, the Pride flag and the transgender flag, to kick off Pride Month and try to make all students feel welcome. The FDA has approved the first new Alzheimer's treatment in nearly 20 years, but KPBS reporter Melissa May says the approval doesn't come without some controversy.
In San Diego, about 100,000 people suffer from Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's San Diego says it's the 3rd leading cause of death in the county. Eugenia Welch is the organization's president and CEO. She is cautiously optimistic about today's approval of the drug Aduhelm.
This is also the first drug that's brought to market that isn't just to treat symptoms. Biogen believes that this drug can actually prevent the progression of the disease when given appropriately.
Biogen is the maker of Aduhelm and says it helps to reduce the presence of amyloid beta plaques in the brain. Those plaques disrupt cell function. Biogen says it can potentially help those in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. But the approval is controversial because clinical trial results were inconsistent. The consumer advocacy group Public Citizen says the approval shows a reckless disregard for science.
I think there's still a little skepticism because there have been 2 clinical trials for this drug. One was positive and one was negative, so people aren't really sure the efficacy.
The approval was done on an accelerated basis, so Biogen will conduct a controlled trial to verify the clinical benefit of Aduhelm in patients with Alzheimer's disease. Welch says one huge positive from the approval is awareness.
Very often people are reluctant to go and seek a diagnosis because there isn't anything that can be done. So we're hoping because the window is so short on this and you have to start the treatment very early in your disease process, it might trigger some people to go get diagnosed sooner.
The FDA announcement comes right before Alzheimer's San Diego's Date with the Cure event, a virtual question and answer session about Alzheimer's disease.
We will have 7 different local researchers as panelists. There'll be a brief discussion of what they're working on, but then 90 minutes available for attendees to ask questions.
For those who would like to register for the free Date with the Cure event happening this Saturday, June 12th, can go to www.alzsd.org or call 858-492-4400. Melissa May, KPBS News.
A recent report from the CDC is renewing calls to get eligible young Americans vaccinated against COVID-19. As Mandy Gaither reports, numbers show a rise in hospitalizations in those aged 12 to 17.
In the U.S., new COVID-19 cases continue to go down, but top U.S. health officials are focusing on another number that's rising up.
I want to highlight a specific population that we were hoping will join the tens of millions who have already been vaccinated, and that is adolescents.
A weekly CDC report shows an increase in the number of youth hospitalized with COVID-19 this spring.
More concerning were the number of adolescents admitted to the hospital who required treatment in the intensive care unit with mechanical ventilation.
The statistics renewing calls to get shots in arms of those aged 12 to 17 who are eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine.
The level of severe disease, even among youth, that are preventable, that force us to redouble our motivation to get our adolescents and young adults vaccinated.
A recent Gallup poll shows 2/3 of U.S. adults now say their lives are at least somewhat back to normal, reflecting a shift in sentiments about the pandemic since this fall. But CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says until a young person is fully vaccinated, she recommends they continue to wear masks and take precautions to protect themselves and others. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
If you haven't been vaccinated yet or you need to help a family member find a shot, we have all the information that you need on our website. Just click on the vaccines link on our homepage at kpbs.org to find a place close to you.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a new Alzheimer's drug. The FDA approves a controversial treatment for the disease. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A kayaker attempting to paddle from California to Hawaii had to cut his trip short just 6 days into his journey. Cyril Dermot lost GPS capabilities and nearly capsized amid rough seas and high winds. He called for a rescue on Saturday night west of Santa Cruz and was picked up by a Coast Guard helicopter. His 23-foot kayak is still adrift, but he hopes to get it back later this week when the winds die down. Jeff Bezos is going to space. The Amazon CEO says he will be flying aboard his Blue Origin rocket next month, and it will take an 11-minute flight on July 15th, traveling more than 60 miles above the Earth. 6 people will be aboard the capsule, including Bezos' brother. One seat is reserved for the winner of an auction that is currently in progress, and the bidding is now more than $2.8 million. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.